Hi everyone. Today video is on JWT, access token and refresh token authentication in .NET 6 Web API. Okay, particularly in this video, we are going to create the JWT access token, and in the next video, we are going to use the refresh token. Okay, so what is JWT token? JWT token is nothing but JSON Web Token. Okay, it is categorized into three parts: header, payload, signature. And header contains like algorithm like HS256 and type it what is the token type, that is JWT. And payload contains claims like username, issuer, audience, email, okay, and so on. And signature contains digital signature, that means it is an encoded of header and payload with secret value. Okay, so these are the three main building blocks of JSON Web Token. So if you have a JSON Web Token, that means that user is authenticated and he is authorized to access based on his claims inside of the payload. Okay, so let's understand the JWT access token flow. So when the user sends username and password, if they to the API, if the username and password are valid, then API creates a JWT access token and return that token as response to the client. Okay. Then client stores that access token either in browser session, okay, or in some state. It uses that JWT token as a header for each and every request to the API. Means if we add JWT token as a header to the particular request, if that request need authorization, then this token will be the entry pass or authentic user authentication pass to consume the particular endpoint. So that's why on every request after successful login, on every request, client application, either a Angular, React, or Vue.js, JavaScript applications can send the JWT token as a header value. Okay, so that is how JWT token will be used for authentication. Okay, now let's create a .NET 6 application, Web API application, and try to implement a small sample. So here is a sample user table that I have created that I am going to use in my Web API application. So the user table contains columns like first name, last name, email, password, and phone number. And you can add a number of your required user values as a table. For this demo, these are the columns I created. Okay. So to follow along with me, please create a table almost like this. Okay. And here I want to mention one more point. Here, carefully observe password. I directly saved raw password, which is a very bad implementation because of this is a small demo and that mainly targets JWT token generation. I am not hashing the password. Okay, if you want to implement the process for your production application or your real-time application, make sure to hash the password. Hashing means one way. The password cannot be seen by with naked eye. Okay, it should be encrypted. This encryption is one way. This cannot be decrypted. That encryption is called hashing. That kind of hashing must be used to save the password. Okay, and you can find lot of code snippets how to encrypt hash the password customly. You can check them. Okay, so here I am using .NET CLI to create a .NET 6 Web API project. So command is like .NET space new space Web API space -o space name of your project. So let's create the API project. Project created successfully. Let's open the project. Okay, here you can observe target framework, that is .NET 6.0, and here is our project. Okay, now first let's try to configure the database context and table classes. So we just implement the code first with existing database. Okay, So first let's install the required NT framework packages. Okay. So the first package I will install, that is Microsoft.NT Framework Core. So Visual Studio 2022 users, please copy the command from package manager, or you can use the UI interface provided by the Visual Studio as well. And since I am using .NET CLI, I am going to copy from here. Copy command, install the package. The second command we have to install, that is Microsoft.NT Framework Core.SQL Server. Copy command, install the package. Now we have user table, right? Let's create a entity for user table, and entity contains property names that match with the table column names, because we are using the code first with existing database approach. Okay. So here let's add a folder like data and a subfolder like entities. Inside of entities, let's add class like user.cs. So let's add properties to the user class. So finally our user class look like this. Now let's create the database context class. For that, in the data folder, directly create a class like your database context class. I will name it like my auth context. Okay, here is our auth context class. To make it database context, it must inherit DB context that loads from Microsoft.NT Framework Core. And let's add the constructor like, and to the constructor we can create DB context options. Okay, we should pass the context to the base class, nothing but DB context class. And here we must register our table class using DB set. So public DB set, define the type as user, which is nothing but our class. Okay, user, and import the namespace. Okay, like this our context class looks like. And now, okay, let's add the connection string. Go to appsettings.development.json. Here let's define connection string. Okay, my auth context. Now here add your database connection string. Okay, after adding connection string, let's register our auth context in program.cs file. So here folder services, add db context and define my auth context. Okay, options dot use SQL server, and here we need to pass the connection string. So to load the connection string, builder dot configurations dot get connection string, and inside of it let's define the name of the connection string. What is our connection string name? It is like my auth context. Copy that and pass it over here. Okay, now let's install System.Identity.Model.Tokens.Jwt NuGet package into our application. Okay, System.Identity.Model.Token.Jwt token. the required package that we install now. Copy command. Let's install the package. Now we have to prepare few settings for our JWT access token. For that, go to appsettings.json. Let's create a settings like token settings. Okay. And we need settings like secret key. Okay. This secret key will be any random string, can be any random string. And this secret key will be used by the JWT token for generating the digital signature, and the same secret key will be used at JWT service while validating the incoming JWT token. Okay, so for the demo, I will give like my secret key, secret, secret, something that you can give any random key and you can generate from any online tool to get a random string. Okay, and next I want settings like issuer, okay, and audience. Okay, so issuer means nothing but the which issues the JWT token. In our case, our API is only issuer. So here we can give our domain name as a issuer. Okay. So for that, go to properties and launch settings. And from here, copy this host name. Okay, as an issuer. So audience is nothing but the client that uses this token, like any Angular application, React or JS, any JS application. In our case, I simply use Postman to test our API, right? So what I will do, I will simply give API itself as a my audience. Okay. So these issuer and audience are nothing to validate the incoming JW token. When the authentication is successful and the request header contains JW token in general, to validate the JW token, because all these issuer and audiences are automatically added as one of the clients into the token. So while reading them with along with the request, we can use them for validation, like a additional security. The token is trusted, and we can confirm that token is a trusted one and validated successfully. Okay, so these three things we required as a token settings. And now let's create a class for this settings so that we can directly access them through the entity. For that, let's create a folder like settings. In that settings, add a class like token settings. And it should contain properties that exactly match with our JSON object property names. Okay. So let's create properties for this class. Okay, now let's register our token settings and JSON token settings at the program.cs file so that they can be injected using I options into the constructor. Okay, so go to program.cs file, builder services.configure. So type is like token settings. Okay, and here builder.configuration section and name of the object, nothing but token settings, this name, copy that. Okay, that is the required registration to implement our logic for user authentication. and generating the token. First, let's create the services. So let's create the concrete and implementation files for the services. I will name them like a account services. Okay. So let's clear all and create a new folder like services. Okay. And add a contract file like iAccount service. Okay, this is our interface that contains all the method definitions of our account service that we are going to create now. Okay, let's create account service. Okay, here is our account service. Let's inherit iAccount service. Okay, and now let's inject our context class as well as our token settings here into the constructor. So private read only, my auth context. Okay, same way we are going to inject token settings as well. Okay, and to inject the token settings we are going to use I options. Okay, that loads from Microsoft extensions.options, and we have to define type as our token settings. And let's assign them. Token settings dot value, because we are using I options, right? We call like value. Okay, now let's create two DTOs. DTOs nothing but data transfer objects. One is for user payload, means like username, password, object. Okay, and another is like token DTO. So it is like a response object that contains access token. Access token nothing but JWT token. Let's create one more folder like DTOs and add a class like login DTO. Okay, this is our login DTO, which is nothing but a user payload. So it contains property like email and password. Let's add them. Now let's create another DTO like token DTO, token DTO.cs. Okay, here is our token DTO and it contains property like access token, which is nothing but JWT token. In a account service, let's create a method definition for generating the JWT token. Okay, that is like task, and it should return token response. Okay, get auth token, and its input parameter is like login DTO. Okay, now let's implement this method into our account service. Okay, let's implement it. So here, so first we have to fetch the user data based on the email and the password. User equal to myauth context dot user dot where email I forgot to add email in user class. So let's add that property. Sorry for that. Okay, now go to our context class. Sorry, not context. Account service and email dot toolover equal to login email dot toolover and compare password as well. Password equal to login password. Here I am mentioning again. Here I am comparing raw password directly because I saved raw password directly, which is a not correct. Okay, for demo purpose to make it simple, I directly comparing the raw password and directly saved the raw password into the database. In real time, you must hash the password while saving into the database, and while comparing also, the user sent password should be encrypted. Okay, then that encrypted characters must be compared against the hashed password in the database. Okay, so please make sure to do that. So finally, first default async. Okay, if at all user exists, then we have to generate access token and return as a response. Okay, if no token if user not exists, we simply return null data, null response. Okay, now we have to generate the user access token, right? For that, let's create a private method for generating the access token. Okay, private string create JWT token, and to this method we must pass our user information. Okay, first thing is we have to generate the symmetric security key. Okay, this symmetric security key instance will be used by the sign in credential. Okay, so using that sign in credentials, it's going to generate in the digital signature. Okay, if you recall our JWT token image, token contains signature, right? So to create the signature, we first need to initialize the symmetric security key. Then that will be consumed by the signing credentials object to generate the digital signature. Okay. So let's create symmetric security key equal to new symmetric security key that loads from Microsoft to models.tokens. Okay. Import the namespace and it will expect some byte array of key. So we have already added one security key right in app settings.development.jsm. So this key must be converted as bytes of array and passed it into the symmetric security key. So to convert into the bytes of array, we can use encoding dot utf8 dot get bytes. Simply pass over the string. So here we already injected the token settings, right? So from the token settings, we can get the secret key. Okay. So generated the symmetric security key. Next, we need to generate the sign-in credential. For generating the sign-in credentials equal to new sign-in credentials. Okay, it's going to take symmetric security key and algorithm to generate the sign-in credential. So I'm going to use security algorithm dot SMSH256. Okay. And then, so we have created the credentials. Now let's prepare the claims to store into the token. So where user claims equal to new claim array. Okay. New claim equal to, I want an email address as a claim. So user dot email and also phone number as a claim. So phone number dot claim. Okay, here I want to mention one more thing that in real-time example, you will have separate tables for the user roles and claims. So you can load all those roles and claims and add it into the token. Okay, so I have prepared claims as well. Now let's create the JWT security token instance. For that, where JWT token equal to new JWT security token. Okay, that loads from System.Identity.Model.Token.Jwt. The package we have just installed, right? That one. Okay, it takes several input parameters like issuer. The issuer we have at our token settings, right? Issuer and expiry date. This is the expiration date of my token. So token always it should be good to give just 20 minutes. Okay, can give 1 day, 2 days, 3 days also, but it is ideal to give 20 minutes because we are going to use the refresh token concept, right? That leaves around 1 week. That is why token should be short and refresh token should be in long term because refresh token don't contains any secure data like claims, like something like that. It is a just random string. Okay, but whereas JW token contains some security data, right? So we must expire it as soon as possible. Okay. Sign in credentials. Credentials we have just created, right? Pass them. And claims. Claims we have just created, right? Pass them. Okay. And audience. We can pass audience as well. That is from the token settings dot audience. And from the JWT security token instance, let's generate the actual token. So string token equal to new JWT security handler dot, it is instance write token. Okay, to that pass the JWT token object. So it's going to write the stringified token. So let's return the token. Okay, now let's consume this method here. So return new token DTO and access token equal to create JSW token and pass the user. Okay, so that's it. That is our logic for generating the authenticated JWT user token. Now let's register our account service and iAccount service into the program.cs file. So builder services dot add scope. I will use iAccount service and account service. Okay. And next thing, let's create a endpoint, authentication endpoint. Okay. And let's add the action method for getting the access token. Okay. For that, let's go to controller folder, and let's add a controller like account controller. Okay, in this account controller, first let's inject our iAccount services. Okay, and now let's create an endpoint for generating the JWT access token. So public async task iAction result get login token. Okay, and it contain login DTO input. Okay, login, and it should be decorated with HTTP post, and it should be add some route like login token. Okay, and let's call our service where result equal to await account service get auth token and pass the login payload. If result equal to null means invalid user credentials, at that time we are returning right null. When user not found, return validation problem method. Here we can pass exception like invalid credential. Okay, if everything good, results is not empty, then simply return them. Okay, so that's it. We are able to generate the access token for a valid user. Let's run the application and test whether we are able to generate the access token or not. Okay, so here is our endpoint login hyphen token. Let's try to get the access token. So I have already added a sample record in the table, right? So I'm going to use those credentials. Now execute. Okay, sorry, gmail.com. See, I got invalid credentials error message because I have given wrong email. Now I corrected it. Check again. See, I got access token. See, the encrypted string. So to see what is inside of this token, let's copy this and go to JWT IO and go to JWT.io, and here in the encoded area, replace with our access token and see here. It is decoded into header, payload, and signature. See, algorithm, it's 256. We have used it right while generating the signature. Same algorithm will be shown here, and you can see all my claims. Email and phone number I manually added, but issuer, expiration, audience, all these claims are automatically added. While generating, we pass it right, they are added. And here is the digital signature format. This is nothing but header and payload plus with the encryption. Okay, so this is how JWT token is framed, and this is how we can check our generated JWT token. Okay, now we are able to generate the token, but whenever we pass that JWT token as a header to consume an endpoint, we should validate, right? For that, we have to register the JWT barrier service. in the program.cs file. For that, we have to install one NuGet package. Okay, let's install it. Okay, the NuGet we have to install, that is Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Authentication.Jwt barrier. Okay, so copy that, install the package. Okay, after installing package, let's go to program.cs file, and here we have to define our JWT barrier service, where we will write instructions or rules for validating the JWT token when it is attached to the request header. Okay, builder dot services dot add authentication type. We are using JWT barrier authentication, right? So JWT barrier defaults, okay, dot authentication scheme, and then add JWT barrier. Okay, and here options where token settings equal to, first let's load these token settings from the JSON, because we are used them here for validation as well. We have token settings, right? We have to load them here. For that, what we can do, builder dot configuration dot get section. So like this only almost, but dot get, and I can define the type, that is token setting. So it will load all the settings into this variable. And then next, options dot token validation parameters. So here we have to define the token validation parameters. Okay, so let's short the namespace and import the namespace. Okay, so our token contains validator, issuer, claim, right? So let's specify here, need to validate the issuer as well. For that, we have to specify the valid issuer, means the value of the issuer that we can get from token settings dot issuer, and we have to make a rule. You should validate the issuer. For that, validate issuer. We have to say boolean true value. Okay, so here we are assigned value, and here we are imposing the rule to validate it, mandatory. Okay, next, same way we can do for audience as well. Okay, so valid audience will be the value token settings dot audience, and to make it compulsory to validate the audience, validate audience equal to true. Okay, validate issuer sign in key equal to true, and we have to, and here we have to assign the sign in key value also. For that, issuer sign in key equal to, here we simply pass symmetric key is enough for validating. Okay, and it should contains encoding data, right? So what we will do, account service, copy this code line. Okay, okay, and here I want to show one more thing, that is clock skew. By default, this clock skew, if you hover it, it's a default value or if you inspect it, its default value is 300 seconds. That means in spite of our token expire, after 5 minutes also the token is treated as a valid. Okay. To make it exact expiration, we have to specify the time span to 0. We are overriding the 5 minutes time span to 0. Okay. So those are the settings we required for validation. Okay. What we did, we have defined the authentication type, that is JWT barrier token authentication, and added the JWT barrier service, and added the validation rules like issuer must be validated, audience must be validated, sign-in key must be validated. Those rules are applied here. Okay. Now let's add authentication middleware just above the authorization. Okay, authentication. Now let's create a one secured endpoint. Okay, that contains authorized header. That means only authenticated user only can consume that endpoint. Okay, let's create it. Simple endpoint in the account controller. Okay, public I sorry I action result get some test endpoint. Okay, return. Okay, I will simply return a string only for authenticated users. Okay, so HTTP GET request and add route like test auth. Okay, and also main attribute, that is authorize. Okay, now let's try to access this endpoint first without having authorize, without having access token. Okay, first let's run the application. Okay, here two endpoints are created. For testing, here I'm going to use the post one because to enable the authorization header values, everything in Swagger, we have to do additional steps. So to skip it, I am going to use the postman. So here is my get endpoint. Let's try to access it. See, here 401, that is unauthorized, means that is a protected resource. We should have token uh, to access that endpoint. For that, let's go to our Swagger and try to get the access token again. Okay, so to get the access token, let's give our valid credentials. So I got the token, copy the token and go to Postman and select header section, and here add a key like authorize. Okay, and here value directly we cannot send a JWT token. It should be prefixed with barrier because JWT token convention is that. Okay, so barrier BEARER and space and then your token. Okay, now try to request the endpoint. See, now I got the result only for authenticated users. That means our authentication is successful. JWT authentication. Okay. Hi everyone. This is the second video on JWT access token and refresh token generation in .NET 6 Web API. Okay. In the first video, we have generated access token, JWT access token. In this video, we are going to implement logic for generating refresh token and also how we can use the refresh token to renew the expired JWT token. Okay. So let's understand the flow of JWT access token and refresh token. Okay, when a JWT token expires, to renew, okay, without user credentials, we will use refresh token. Okay, refresh token is a secret key, user secret key where we can generate a expired JWT token. If you observe this picture, here you can see username and password. When user sent username and password, a valid username and password, API then send response like JWT access token and refresh token. So JWT access token is short-lived. Okay, recommended is 20 minutes. Whereas refresh token is long-lived and its recommended time is 7 days. Okay. So JWT token will be added as a request header. Okay, for every request. So the request will be authenticated request. For suppose after 20 minutes, if the refresh token JWT access token expired, then API sends response like unauthorized response. Okay, 401 unauthorized. In that case, client what it will do, it will sends the refresh token and API project validates the refresh token and generates the appropriate JWT access token new one and also new refresh token because once we use a refresh token, we should not use it again. Okay. So while creating a new JWT access token, refresh token also generated. Next time, user need to use the newly created refresh token. Okay. And before jumping to project, here I have created a simple refresh token table. Okay. It contains ID, which is a primary key, and user ID, and token and expiry date. So in this table, a user can have n number of refresh token. N number of refresh tokens are nothing but user might authenticate it into the application from different browsers or different devices. Okay, so that's why it will have one to many relationship with the user table refresh token. Okay, so create a simple refresh token here with user ID, token, and expiration date as its columns. Okay, now let's jump into our project. So let's go to our account service file. Okay, now I want to create a one new method, private method where I can generate the refresh token. Okay, here refresh token can be any random string. Okay, string create refresh token. Okay, this is my method, and to generate a random string I can use, first I will get the bytes of data. For that I will use random number generator instance. Okay, that loads from system.security.cryptography. Okay, from this I will get the bytes of data. So I want 64 bytes of data of string. Okay, so I am getting the bytes of string, random bytes of string. Now what I will do, I will convert them bytes into a base 64 string. So I can use that value as my refresh token. Convert to base 64 string and pass the token bytes. Okay, now I generated the random string that I can use as a refresh token. So now what I have to do, I have to check whether this refresh token is already exist in database or not because it should be unique, right? Because based on that value only, I will find out the user information for renewing the new JWT access token. So for that, first let's test whether token is in use, means already exist. For that, what I will do, I am going to, I have to test my refresh token table, but I haven't created refresh token entity, right? So first let's create the refresh token entity here, entity class here. Okay, refreshToken.cs, create a new file in entities. So to this class, let's add our database columns. Okay. Okay. This is my refresh token table and just update it in DB context. My auth DB context, let's add DB set refresh token. Okay. So we registered our table with our database context. Now let's go to our account service. Now I can access dot token refresh token where token equal to newly generated refresh token. Okay, dot first dot default async. Okay. Here what I will do, instead of fetching data, I will use any just boolean. So it will return whether the record is exists in the table or not. So if the record exists in table, then I need to re-execute this method again. Okay. So I will call again this create refresh token method again. If not exist, then it is fresh token, then we will return it. So that is our private method. Okay. Now let's create one more private method where we are going to insert newly created refresh token. Okay. So here let me create one more private method. Private async. Okay. Task insert refresh token. Okay, and it will have input parameters like user ID and refresh token. Okay, now let's create the object for a new refresh token. New refresh token equal to new refresh token object. Okay, and here user ID equal to user ID and token equal to refresh token, and here our expiration date. So I want to give 7 days of expiration. So I can give 7 days. Okay. Now just insert this record into the database. Okay. So for that, my auth context refresh token dot add new refresh token. Okay. Await my auth context dot sorry save changes setting. Okay. So this method going to insert our newly created refresh token. Now let's update our token DTO along with the access token. I want to return this refresh token as well. Okay. So client will store in browser session or anywhere in their state management. So refresh token add the property. Now let's update our GetAuthentication token method to return both access token and the refresh token. So for that, what I will do, where access token equal to just send this method here. Okay. Now where refresh token equal to create refresh token. And once we generate refresh token, we must save it back to our database. For that, let's call our insert refresh token method and pass user dot user dot id comma and next what we have to add refresh token as a input parameter. Okay, and here okay, fine. So after inserting it, let's simply return the response access token comma refresh token equal to refresh token. Okay, okay. Now let's run our application and check whether we are getting a refresh token along with JWT access token or not. Okay. Okay. Now let's test it with my credentials. So here you can see a random string that is generated as a refresh token. If we observe the database, you can see a record must be inserted here. See, for user ID 1, one token is inserted, refresh token. Okay, now we have to create a endpoint for renewing the JWT token based on the refresh token we send. Okay, so for that, what we will do, let's first create the payload object. Okay, I want to use new endpoint as a post method, so I will create a new class, new DTO class for payload. So I will name it like refresh token DTO. So it will contain only one property like token. So where we will send refresh token value to this token property. Okay. So now let's define a method in iAccount service. Okay, for renewing the tokens. Okay. So task, it will also return token response, but it is a renew tokens, and it will contains payload like refresh token DTO. Okay. So let's implement this method in account service. So here let's implement. So here is the method we have to implement. Okay. First, let's check our refresh token exists in our database and also its expiration is still valid. Okay. It is not expired. Okay. So for testing that, user refresh token equal to await. Okay. My auth context dot refresh token dot where token equal to refresh token hyphen token, and also we have to check the expiration time. So dot expiration dot create date greater than or equal to date time dot now. Okay. Dot first or default string. If it is empty, means either token doesn't exist in the database or it might be expired. Okay. At that case, just simply return null. And here I want to mention one more thing. Here there will be multiple records for tokens, right? User tokens. They will be expire after 7 days, right? So to make this table light and to remove the all unnecessary data, instead of writing a delete query here, okay, I suggest to write a background job where it runs every day and it checks for any expiration tokens in the table or not. If you are there, that job will delete our expired tokens. So our table will be very lightweight. So that is one suggestion. Okay, so come back to this method. If the tokens are not found, we are going to return null. If tokens found, we have to fetch the user information where user equal to await my auth user dot where. Since in refresh token we will have user ID, right? Dot ID equal to user refresh token dot user ID dot first dot default async and okay. Once we got that, next we have to generate a new new JWT token. Okay, create JWT token. We method already we have, right? So to that method we are going to pass our user information and where new refresh token equal to create refresh token. Okay, once we got the refresh token, we must update the database record because I mentioned, right, we have to use or we have to verify refresh token only once. So I will update the this refresh token information. So what I will do, user refresh token dot token equal to my newly generated refresh token. Okay, and also we have to update again the expiration date. So date time now dot add is 7 days. Okay, and simply call save changes async. So it's going to update this record we are fetching, right, from database. NT framework keeps the track. So if we update the properties and we call save changes, it will update the changes we made. Okay, and finally we simply return the new token DTO. Okay, so access token equal to new JWT token and refresh token equal to new refresh token. New refresh token. Okay, so that's our method for generating the refresh token. So what we are doing, we are first fetching the user reference token table data. If that doesn't exist, returning null. If it exists, we are getting the user information and we creating token, refresh token, and updating the old refresh token and its expiration time and saving to the database, and finally returning the response. Okay. Now let's create our renew token endpoint, which is a post endpoint. So go to our controller, account controller. Okay, here let's create one more method, action method. So I will name it like renew tokens. Okay, its payload will be refresh token DTO. Okay, and it should be a HTTP post. And let's define some route. Okay, renew token. Okay, so now where tokens equal to await account service renew token and pass our refresh token payload. Okay, if tokens is empty, okay, that means either our token is not exist in database or it is expired. So at that time I will simply return validation problem and a message like invalid refresh token. Okay. Next, finally return OK. Okay. So that's it. Let's test our renew token endpoints as well. Okay, here is our new endpoint. First, let me get the access token. Okay, access token we have already generated, right? If you want generate new, generate it. I'm copying from the database. And let's open renew token endpoint, try out, and paste here our token. Okay, and execute. See, new access token and refresh token. And if you observe this database, if you execute, it starts with IU, right? What's newly generated is some GZ. So let's execute again. It is updated successfully or not. Let's check. See, it is updated successfully. And we also renewed the new access token. So this is how refresh token helps to regenerate the access token without any user credential. Okay. So that's the end of this video series. We're generating JWT access token and refresh token in .NET 6 Web API. I hope this video has delivered some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing off.